Oh hey everyone! Welcome to Should You Summon. I know it doesn't look like an episode of Should You Summon, but it is an episode of Should You Summon. It's going to be a little bit different, it's going to be a little bit weird, because I wanted to talk to you here in the studio instead of as a disembodied voice behind one of my usual videos. Part of the reason for that is because I wanted to come clean about some burnout that I've been feeling regarding the game lately. I haven't really been playing too much over the past month. I have been logging in every day and doing my dailies. I've even been keeping up with my dailies on FreeKong and the Kong of Time account. But I have not been doing my challenges or other extra content like Endless Voyage, or I haven't logged in and done any Apex matches for the past few weeks. It's not like heavy burnout, like I'm not on the verge of quitting the game or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about that. But it has just been feeling like the drive to log in and like get pleasure out of the game hasn't really been there as much as it has over the past 5 years. And now that I say that, it sounds crazy, right? We've been playing this game for 5 years now. Obviously, it's kind of natural that it's not going to have that same invigorating feeling at all times during that 5-year journey. There's going to be ups and downs. So like I said, I'm not planning on quitting the game. I don't hate the game. I'm not bored of the game. I just don't feel like I have as much energy to sink into the game every day that I used to. So, yeah. I didn't want to not make a Should You Summon video, but to be frank, I also didn't want to sit down in the studio and edit a Should You Summon video for like 8 hours, which is about how long it normally takes to put together a really good video. So obviously the Lang burnout kind of extends to that, sitting in the studio and sinking time and research and effort into building Langrisser content. So instead, we're going to have this little chat, and I'll still cover some Should You Summon related stuff. But I wanted to come clean about that first, just because, not like I owe anyone an explanation, but I didn't want to worry anyone either. I've spent the last month doing a bunch of different stuff, doing a little bit of traveling with the dogs. I drove to Prince Edward Island with Applesauce over a weekend, and that was a nice little trip. I also spent a weekend, I drove to a tiny little town in New Brunswick called Woodstock, for the total solar eclipse, and I got to spend time with my family there, watching the total solar eclipse for 3.5 minutes, and it was just an awesome experience. It was way better than I expected it to be, and I wish those things happened all the time. It was so cool. So I've been doing that. I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV, and I don't know, let me know in the comments if you want me to start kind of trying my hand at creating content for other stuff. Like, I have some more studio content planned like this, not just Talking Head, Talking Kong studio content, but some other stuff that I can do in here. I have one plan that I really want to try to get on the table soon, which is Lego related. I'm not going to say too much more than that, but also could look at putting together even just some streams, like super casual mode streams of Final Fantasy XIV. But that's all stuff for another day. Stuff for today is Should You Summon. So let's talk about the Guyver crossover. Yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about the first character, who is the series protagonist and obviously a member of the protagonist faction, Sho Fukamachi, aka Guyver 1. He is an interesting unit. He kind of reminds me a little bit of an Oboro or a Ryo Sanada, who have a lot of potential in PvE content if you have the time and put in the effort to build him up to full power. I say PvE content specifically because often in PvP, you don't have all that time and effort available to build him up to full power and take advantage of using him before the match is already over. So his talent gives him plus 25% attack and defense, and it is also the source of up to 5 random buffs that he can get. Basically, at the start of the turn, you get a random buff from a pool. It can either be plus range, plus movement, first strike, heal after combat, or ignore enemy defense. And these normally only last 2 turns each, but the gimmick with them is if you... Wow, I don't know if you heard that huge ripping noise. That's not my pants, that's Applesauce over there playing with one of her toys, and one of her ex-toys now, as it is just had its head ripped off. Okay, back to Guyver. Guyver can rip off heads too, but more on that in a moment. The gimmick with these buffs is basically if you use the buff to a certain extent, its effects become enhanced and it becomes permanent. So the plus range buff, for example, if you attack an enemy and don't take damage in return, so for example if you're range attacking a melee unit, then that range buff becomes permanent and it actually becomes plus 2 range instead of plus 1 range. And that same pattern applies to all the other buffs. So the plus 1 mobility buff, if you move 5 spaces in an action, then that becomes permanent and you get another plus mobility, so plus 2 mobility. Same thing with the ignore defense. If you eliminate an enemy, you get to ignore double the defense. The healing after combat, I forget what the condition for doubling that is, but it's the same kind of deal. You basically have to use the buff and then it enhances and becomes permanent. So you can already see how this can be super useful in content like PvE challenge content, where you have like 25 or 30 turns to kill a big super boss. You have plenty of time to get all those 5 buffs on Sho, and then use them to sync them in and make them permanent and double their effects. The only thing is, oddly enough, I haven't seen any examples of Sho being used in Ancient Beckoning. Like, that seems like the natural place where he would be used. Part of the problem might be that the Heroes of Time faction was just recently added to, I believe it was Jormungandr. So maybe in the coming months, we'll start to see Sho showing up in a Jormungandr fight. So the other skills that Sho has that are worth mentioning are his 3C, which is a 1.8 times damage single target attack. It can attack at range, I think is naturally 2 range, but then you can also benefit obviously from a range boost from his talent, getting up to 4 range on this, and it also brings melee soldiers along with them for the ride. So if you're using melee soldiers, you can do, essentially, if you're fully powered up, a 4 range, 1.8 times damage. I think it also ignores some enemy defense if you meet certain conditions. It has a passive element as well, where if you have 3 of his talent boosts, then it cools down all of his skills by 1. So when he's fully charged up, he essentially has all those buffs in addition to shorter cooldown times on his skills. He has a couple of other single target skills, unique ones in his kit, but the other important one is a revive. So this is another interesting revive where after he gets killed, he doesn't revive right away. Instead, he leaves the Guyver control medal on the ground. Then he revives off that control medal. He's uncontrollable for 1 turn, just like in the Guyver anime. If you've ever seen, there's a pretty awesome sequence. Not to spoil anything, it's only a few episodes in, but Guyver essentially regenerates from the control medal and then goes into like a rampaging self-defense mode, where Sho isn't in control, it's the control medal who's dictating his actions to essentially protect it from any threats around. He's way more powerful in this form as well, because it's not being held back by Sho's human knowledge and abilities, it's purely the Guyver driving the action. So this revive is a pretty cool nod to that lore as well. After his 1 turn of uncontrollability, then you get to regain control of Sho, and he can kind of act again after doing whatever the Guyver does. In short, I think there will probably be some like meme usage of Sho in PvP, but it'll probably be relegated to that, and one of those meme players is going to be this guy. On the PvE side, he's definitely much more valuable, but along the same lines as Ryo Sanada, who the people who built Ryo Sanada for stuff like Ragnarok of the Realms and challenges and, things like that, those Ryo players know what they got. He's super fun and awesome to use. Sho's probably going to be another character like that you're not going to be using all the time, but when you get to whip him out, it'll be satisfying. Okay, the next character that we can summon on this banner is Archanfel, the main villain of the Guyver series. He is a demon unit who deals magical damage, and he's much more tilted towards PvP than Sho is. His talent gives him plus 20% int, and it also contains his main gimmick, which is that his skills don't really have any cooldowns. Instead, you have to use charges of his talent power stack, whatever you want to call it, whatever Zlong calls it, we'll find out in a few hours. And however much cooldown your skill would normally have, that's how many stacks it takes off his talent. So he starts with 15 stacks, And then obviously if you want to use Black Hole, you have to cash in 5 of those stacks in order to use it. And you can use Black Hole again, as long as you have enough stacks to use his skill. At the end of his turn, you have the option of going into a hibernation state, where he can't do anything for a turn, basically, and after that it recharges his talent stacks. So if you use him to blow out some spells, and then he's running low, you can basically like turn him off for a turn, get your stacks back, get him recharged and ready to go into the action again. So the other skill that he has that is pretty relevant for something like PvP is his teleport skill. This is an interesting teleport that allows him to zip to an enemy, and then he gets an act again, so he can teleport to someone and then use a single target skill to try to defeat them, or use an AoE on the enemy team to try to disable them. The teleport is only limited by the number of talent charges that Archanfel has left. It costs 1 charge per space between you and the enemy in order to use it. So if you have full stacks, you can teleport to someone who's 15 squares away, but then remember, you need to have enough stacks to use a skill when you get there as well. So it's a pretty versatile and dynamic little skill, and it does make him a pretty dangerous, kind of magical assassin type character, like kind of like a Lostum, or a little bit not quite as powerful as like a Zerida 2 at her prime. Either way, that's Archanfel. So as far as a notes for noobs type section, I'm gonna say if you're a Guyver fan or a collector, like a Heroes of Time / crossover collector, then easy summon. So, you know, most people are either gonna care about Sho or Archanfel. Let's be realistic, most people are probably gonna try to summon them both for collector purposes, or just skip the banner entirely. In terms of like pure functionality and usefulness, neither of these characters is anywhere on par with some of the big characters that we've gotten over the past few months. Definitely not as strong as Isolde or Andriole or Ashin, characters like that, who made big and lasting impacts. These are more the side grade characters that you slot in if you like the look of Golden Jesus and you want to have something like that in your box. So, can't strongly recommend them just from a pure stats and kit point of view, but really, if you're feeling it, then go for it. If not, we've got some big stuff coming up in the future that is going to be more impactful for the meta. If you're on a budget, then you may want to use this month as an opportunity to save up your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. Let's go ahead and leave it there. Let me know in the comments if you're feeling like summoning because you want to use these characters. If you're feeling like summoning because you're a Guyver fan, that's me. I'm probably going to build them up just because I think they deserve that much from me, as someone who's probably partly responsible for getting them into the game. Or if you're going to be skipping entirely and you're planning on saving your vouchers for something that's coming up in the future, let me know. Let me know on the Discord if you feel like coming over and chatting in a more real-time format. And also let me know if you're comfortable with me starting to branch out into some other studio content or covering some other games in kind of a chill stream type form factor. Until then, I was glad to have the chance to talk to you guys face to face like this, so maybe more opportunities for that in the future as well. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy Langrissing.
Tetsuro! Sho, you've got to help her! You've got to help Mizuki! They've got her! I need the power. I must rescue Mizuki. I must call it!